All right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. It's time for us to look at selling issues making the rounds in Nigeria, and definitely we'll be giving you a very balanced analysis and review and post view of all the sides of every talking point we'll be sharing with you on today's edition. The promises to be very revealing. We'll be looking at the war on Gaza, the anti-Netanyahu protest that has rocked Israel. We'll be looking at tens of thousands of people on Sunday gathered outside the Israeli parliament building in Jerusalem in the largest anti-government protest since Israel launched its assault on Gaza. We'll be looking at what this means for the country Israel and for the international scene, knowing fully well that the United Nations Security Council had voted for a ceasefire. Would this finally come to bear is what we'll be looking at on today's edition. Also, we'll be looking at other issues making the rounds. We know that in Senegal, we have the youngest president ever now, talking about Bassirou Faye, who got sworn in as the president of Senegal, the fifth president of Senegal, the youngest president in Africa amongst the 53 countries in the continent. He is the youngest at 44. We'll be looking at what this means for the ECOWAS community, especially if you cast your mind back towards the other issues making the rounds in Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and other West African countries. So we'll be looking at Macky Sall. What is life for Macky Sall after the presidency? We'll be looking at and what lessons African leaders need to get from what played out in Senegal. Also, we'll be taking you to Egypt, where the man Sisi has decided he's getting another term in office, and the issue of perpetuating themselves in power by African leaders is what we'll be looking at, especially when we cast our minds towards what plays out in Egypt. Then we'll be taking you to Finland, where 3 children were injured in a shooting at an elementary school in Finland. We'll be looking at school safety, what this means, not only in Nigeria but across the world. Then we'll also be looking at what played out in Nigeria now, talking about on the national level, where the National Economic Council will reconvene later this month as more state governments have submitted their report on the establishment of state police and also forest guards to protect farmers. These and other stories is what we'll be looking at on today's exciting edition of the program, The Desk. My guest is no other person but Greg Odogu, who is an environmental and also a development expert, joining me live in the studios to help us look at the very interesting talking points. And we'll be joined also, hopefully, via Zoom by Chief Chike Okogu, who is also a development personality, who will be joining us on the program. And we'll be hopefully be joined also by Oche Emmanuel, who is an activist and a lawyer. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on The Desk.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin from where it matters most, Senegal, talking about the final inauguration of the new president of Senegal, the 5th president, Faye, who won the election first round against all odds. 10 days after coming out from prison, he wins the election against Macky Sall, who wanted to perpetuate himself in power. What are the key lessons African leaders should take away from what played out in Dakar?
Well, I think the first is to congratulate Senegal and to congratulate Africa and the sub-region, the West African sub-region, because there was a gale of coups d'etats. So we were actually worried about democracy in the region. But now, the key takeaway from what has happened, especially today that Faye has become the president, is that democracy is the best option for us. And also that the people's rights will always trump the right of individuals that want to make themselves the state. No one individual is the state. So Africa should learn, to move forward. If you have a vision for your country and you believe that you have delivered on your vision, then it's time to move forward and let others take on from where you stopped. So every African leader should learn. Then the youth of Africa has a very strong message to learn from this. It's our time. That's what that's what is taking the youth time. Because Faye, his full name is Bassirou Diomaye Faye. He said that it is between continuity and rupture. That is the election. Rupture from the dislocation. So because every youth, for instance, we are talking about disruptive technologies,
Sure.
So it's a disruption of what would have been if democracy was not allowed to prosper. So it is the youth that should be at the forefront. We had youths, honestly, in Nigeria, for instance,
not too young to
run. When they were honestly asking for the opportunity to exactly. So it was given to them. So it means that the youth has come. They have come to the middle of the table. This is the 44-year-old, and if you know that also it is the country that has not experienced military coup from their independence. So if, for instance, that democracy was disrupted, it would have been a psychological blow for all of us. But now there is continuity. So that rupture from that disruption from dislocation of democracy has happened, and the youths are at the center of it. So, and secondly, the parliament, the judiciary and the parliament, they have shown that they are key players in democracy.
That was the question I'm going to ask you. Do you think, because we know that the constitution, talking about the court in Senegal, bluntly came out to tell Sall that he did not have the right to extend it more than the day he was going to leave power. And that alone made, because they have been in his pocket all this while.
Of course.
And that statement also made him know that, okay, he had nowhere to hide. Do we have electoral body that can speak truth to power? Do we have a judiciary that can also speak truth to power?
We have a judiciary, but do we have the people in the judiciary that could do that? That is the question. Are these players, are they patriotic enough? Because everything falls and rises on the individual. Remember sometime in 2014 when former president of Burundi, Nkurunziza, was trying to perpetuate himself in power. That's what he did. He brought some people over, and the institutions that should stand for the people started speaking for him. So it just took one man to resign and go into exile to send a signal that we are not all bought. So that is what we can see in Senegal now, that it's just that they thought that some of the individuals in that institution, because there is always an institution, we have those institutions, democratic institutions, but the individuals there, do they have the political will? Do they have enough patriotic spirit to speak? Because it just takes that voice to speak from the institution. Not the institution is made up of individuals, people that carry it. Because if, for instance, you say the judiciary has proclaimed, who is that judge in the judiciary at that time? If he's a fair judge, it would happen. If he's not a fair judge, it will be shut down. So I think it's a lesson for our players in the judiciary and the parliament.
Aside those two arms, let's talk about the umpire itself now. Like we have INEC in Nigeria.
Of course.
They played a very key role in the Senegalese elections, because if they wanted, they would have obtained or, defrauded the electorates. But they came out clean and, without fear or favor. Do we also have an INEC that can go towards that route?
That's a big question. In fact, the past election, we were all disappointed concerning what we expected that would have come and what was promised to the citizens. And they did not deliver on their promise because they said there was a glitch. It was a pain to people like us that love Nigeria, because we were seeing that we were moving away from the past where there is no more, there was no transparency and anything could happen, because it's in darkness that things that was untoward could happen. But now, look at what happened in Senegal. The votes, where people were seeing the votes to the extent that the election was not over
before
Ahmadu Ba,
almost
the incumbent, the ruling party's candidate spoke and said, we have seen the trend. What trend did he see? He has seen how the transparency in the umpire had shown where the vote was going. So that is not the same.
Is it because of the money factor? Is that why we cannot have a sincere INEC, an independent INEC, like the name
signifies? Yes. Well, it's an allegation, because there is nowhere that it would be a money factor would be because the only money factor we know is sponsorship of their processes, and the government gave them all they needed. If you say you need 400 billion naira, we give it to you. So if I understand you correctly, the money factor you are talking about is maybe some people with big war chests buying over the system. And it's at the speculative level for now, because nothing has been proven to be under the purview of law to say, okay, money exchange has, or somebody did this out of being influenced. So, but there is a politics we play in Nigeria, which is where I concur to what you are suggesting. We play money politics over here. The bigger your pockets, the deeper your pockets, the faster you would win election, to the extent that if you don't have money, people will not even expect you to contest. And it is a given that that person could easily buy up the people and this, in the processes. So that is where the problem is. It's so pecuniary. Everything is dependent on naira and kobo, and it is not transparent enough, because after 9 months of election, the parties have not even come out to tell us how much they spent in their campaign and where they deploy money and where they did not deploy money. If you go to the United States, you could see how they are even raising funds. Even the ruling party is raising funds because nobody has a bullion van somewhere. Yeah. So that is how democracy should be. The transparency should make it possible for you to be able to know what is going on a daily basis. And when money becomes a factor, you should know what the money was used for. But now, everything is shrouded in
let's wrap up our talk on Senegal before we move to other talking points. We've got Finland next to talk about. How big is the burden on Faye to deliver the goods in terms of change the narrative about Senegalese and to live up to expectations of Senegalese? How big is the burden?
He has a big work in his hand, a burden in his hand, a big task on his shoulders right now. First of all, you have to unify your country. And he has a task before him, and he's a young person. He has to bridge the gap between the old and the new, the generational gap. People that are protesting in the streets, you have to give the other people a sense of belonging, that we are all equal stakeholders in the state. So that is the number one. Number two, the country is poor. Even where he comes from, there is poverty in the land. Because of climate change, the ground is dry. In fact, the agriculturist people, he started a farm. After all, he said that was retirement plan. He joined politics about 10 years ago when he was in his early 30s. And after working as equivalent of FIRS, tax collector, tax inspector, he now went and bought a piece of land. In fact, when he declared his assets, it was a piece of land where he's doing his agricultural activities and his house in his hometown. So that shows that he's closer to the ground, and there is scarcity. The weather is, getting worse by the day. People are not getting the more they expect from the system also to support. So he has to support smallholder farmers and do a financial inclusion that is going to bring everybody on board.
In as much as he wants to unify the country, would that mean he would not want to rock the boat to say he would want to probe Macky Sall's era?
Well, it depends on how he wants to do it, but coming from the kind of person he is and from the political structure that produced him, I think it's a given that it has to be done.
He has to probe.
It is a given. It's just a matter of time.
All right,
it's just a matter of time.
All right, in case you're just joining us, you're watching The Desk, and we're looking at issues that are making the rounds in the African continent. We're taking you to Finland, where next we'll be looking at what played out a very sad commentary, talking about school safety, school security, where 3 children were injured in a shooting at an elementary school in Finland early Tuesday, and a suspect who was also a minor was later apprehended. Finnish police did inform us that the shooting took place at the Vietola school in Vantaa, a suburb in the capital Helsinki, which has around 800 students from 1st to 9th grade and a staff of some 90 people, according to local sources there. Let's look at the school security in Nigeria. Yes, we talk about kidnapping, but here we've always had shooting issues, gun control issues in Europe. How key is this, the fact that now it's involving the minors? And how dangerous is this trend? Because in Nigeria, we also had a story in one of the northern states where some children were playing with den gun and actually got some killed.
Well, let's say what I see in what is just transpired, what just happened in Finland is an aberration, because we are not used to such stories, especially in that Scandinavian Europe
part of the world. Yeah.
Yes, because it's a society that is quite calm and also very prosperous. It's one of the richest countries, Denmark, Norway, Scandinavia.
Yeah. Sweden.
Yes, social welfare is very effective, but it's in America we are used to that kind of story. So I think this is of something to be of concern to us, and I believe concern to the region as Europe, because if whatever happens means that it has maybe 10 times more of happening somewhere else in the same neighborhood, because the media is very powerful, and I don't know the situation of the gun control situation in and I don't know how Finland is with gun control, but basically America is worse off when it comes to gun ownership, because of the amendment that specify that you have to defend yourself.
You have the right
the
to bear arms. Yeah.
Exactly. So this may be an aberration at best, and a sprout, a root of evil at worst. Because when you talk about a young mind must have been influenced and inspired to do such damage to a fellow young man. And a school that has more than 90 students, 90 teachers, 800 students, which means it's quite a big
and probably the staff to ratio not good enough. I think it means it's something they have to also work on. If
you take 90 to 800, I think it's 10. It's fair enough.
All right. Let's come back to Nigeria, where the National Economic Council will reconvene as regards talking about the issue of state policing and also forest guards to save farmers and ensure that the agricultural sector comes back to life. Are you impressed with the fact that the National Economic Council is making a deliberate attempt to see how the agricultural sector can kick back to life, and that state governors are now beginning to warm up to the issue of state policing? How do you see this panning out? And talking about forest guards to protect farmers, are you completely satisfied with the process?
I've campaigned actually for some time now that there should be forest guards, statutory, especially even at a regional level, even in West African level, because just like you have mountain rangers and in the Western world. You know why? Because our GDP depends more on agriculture than any other source. And now I see what is going on as a backdoor of bringing in state police. Because, yeah, of course, because, you know, people have been demanding for, course, police. And
community policing, so they
exactly, a community. So whenever you talk about, you know, because it's about 10 states, I think 16 states. 16 states. Yeah, 16 states have already submitted. Okay.
Their report.
Exactly.
Show of interest.
The National Economic Council is saying some more are going to have submitted already. We don't know how it's going to pan out. But what I am convinced that is a better way to structure it. You know, because economic matters affects most of us directly and more more impactfully because of Naira and Kobo. People have to eat, people have to go to their farm. I mean, you know what is going on now. The food insecurity, the insecurity in the food sector is because of the general insecurity. So people will not be able to go to their farm.
In terms of the securing farmers, are you worried that it might be misconstrued and probably used to extort the local farmers? Because when you say protect farmers, how do you decide who gets protection? At what time of the day do they get that protection? Who pays for the arms or whatever it's going to take these forest guards to protect the farms?
That's what we are talking about, submission of those proposals. Because a proposal we define in blueprints, in clear terms. Black and blue, black and white. Yeah. What is going to be the modus operandi? Indeed. So that if it's not feasible or if there are objections, if there are areas of concern, these are going to be trashed out. Because I actually see that it's going to ameliorate the level of control. The control from
the state government.
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you call forest guard have been existing in some places. Do you know Akwa Ibom State has 5,000 cadets they launched just some months ago. Enugu State has their own forest guards already. So it's just a matter of, in fact, Amotekun of regional, of Southwest is regional. Is it not? Is something about? Is something related to this? So vigilante. So we are going to look at the fine prints and know what kind of weapons are they allowed to carry. Because if, for instance, is to go all out against insecurity, and you have your gun, and the other threats has AK-47 and AR-15.
It's not realistic.
There is no balance of power. It's going to tilt against the citizens you are trying to protect, and it's going to miss the whole point. And you just wasted the efforts and the resources. So I believe that's what matters. When it comes down to this, we're going to see, is it the same weapons that the police are carrying? Because in the US, for instance, the Rangers are armed, especially in places like California, where you have a wide area of space, because that's, of course, because that's what matters. So if, for instance, you have like 5 men deployed to a square kilometer, maybe 900 square kilometer, and then the bandits are like 200. It doesn't make sense. So it's the details that is going to, because they always say the devil is in the details. I believe this is the back door to bring in state police, but in a way that it will be easy for us to dissect and discuss without so much bad blood. Because when you call it state police, people are going to think, he's raising an army, a battalion, to control. But when it comes to forest guard, is delineated to a particular space, and the psychology is more amenable. So I think when we see the blueprint, but what is going on now is that the country is set for a change. Okay. So there must be something is going to
give way.
Something is going to give.
All right, we're still talking issues that are making the rounds. In case you're just joining us, you're watching the Dex on Global Television, and Greg Odogwu is my guest on today's edition He is an environmental and development expert, specialist, depending the term you choose to use. And we're still looking at silent issues making the rounds across the world and in Nigeria specifically. Let's look at the next talking point, which tells us that electricity tariff, the hike looms as federal government raises gas price. It's very instructive for you to know that the federal government on Monday announced that the new price of natural gas for power generation companies is now at $2.42 per metric million British terminal unit, higher than the previous rate of 2.18 million metric tons. And so it means Nigeria generates over 70% of its electricity from thermal power plants that are fired by gas. Therefore, the rise in the cost of the commodity may lead to a hike in the tariff payable by power consumers once the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission carries out another tariff review. All right, we already know that the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, an agency of the federal government, unveiled the new domestic base price and wholesale prices of the natural gas for 2024 in an announcement on Monday. How should Nigerians be very scared of this news, this piece of news? Already we're going through a lot of challenges in terms of how tight the economic situation is in the country.
It's actually the players in the industry that should be more scared than the citizens, because, you know, it has been said, the government has been told to hold on to the
hike in price.
The subsidy.
The subsidy.
Not
they were talking about the Minister of Adebayo Adelabu.
Yeah, not to remove the power subsidy, electricity subsidy.
Yeah.
Okay. So the generators are going to bear this, the GENCOs are going to bear this brunt. And, you know, there is a backlog of debts.
Debt, yeah.
Of course. So this is going to increase their burden. And it's only when there is a consensus between the government and the DISCOs and GENCOs and transmission companies.
Okay, the TCN.
TCN. Yeah. So when these three come together, and now the government is convinced that is when it will now come on the consumer. But if it doesn't happen, another way that we saw a couple of years ago, I think 2022, by the end of 2022, the tariff was increased and we didn't know.
Yeah, it was just...
Yeah, exactly. I just...
Subtly...
of course, inserted. So are we looking at a backdoor
approach
of increasing
the tariff,
or are we looking to a new discussion, a new conversation? Because this conversation is due. It started many years ago, in the past 2 administrations ago, under
Goodluck Jonathan, yeah.
When this privatization, the unbundling happened, and some people that didn't have the capacity were given the license.
The license.
I was one of the people that spoke in the public space that this is not fair. It should be reviewed, because, you know, there is some technology and some funds that were supposed to be deployed to grow the industry. You don't come and tell the government to lend you again. Government unbundle
because they wanted to pass the burden to you.
So I think it's a time for the players, stakeholders, to go back to the drawing board. And somebody talked about it. I can't remember. It's from some quarters we are talking about review the licenses. And also, secondly, we have to also increase our spectrum of power sources. Why would 70% be on gas alone? You know, this is thermal, burning of gas. We have so much potential for renewables, so much potential. And countries that even have less population than us are deploying them. And we are not deploying them, and we're depending on gas. Gas is even dirty. It's just that gas is a transitional energy, like we are looking to make it cleaner. So, but we cannot afford to stay in one place for too long. So meanwhile, we have the gas in abundance, actually. So why it also goes to show how poorly we are managing our resources, because God has given us this in abundance.
Is it due to lack of technical know-how, or lack of technology transfer, or the lack of political will to get things done right, what can we hold responsible? Because remember the previous, I think the last Senate president did say that the energy sector was a hoax, so that he found out that it was all a lie. Those were very damaging statements.
Yes. It's a mixed bag of mistakes that were made, and then a corruption that tends to make it worse. You know, we have local manufacturers of meter, of the metering set.
The metering set, okay.
Of course. But are they allowed to create employment, to have a level playing ground where they will be competing?
Instead of importing.
So the government seems to, like, there's a controversial contract that was given for, given to a company to meter all the army formations. Yes, exactly. Yes. So some stakeholders are asking, how did they do this bidding? How did they, because there are some other players in the industry that would have been brought in. A transparent bid system process would have been, exercised, and then it will benefit the economy. So what the past president referred to is saying is that most of these things are not benefiting the economy. World Bank has gave some of the funding that we were using to do the metering, sort of supporting the institutions, to strengthen the institutions. But is it happening? That's why I'm talking about is a mixed bag. Secondly, technology. We do not have that technology, and we have technology transfer, local content laws.
Laws, true.
And we, especially in the oil sector now, there is, in fact, in Bayelsa.
As regards the PIA bill that
yes, yes, as follow up to that. So, but have we concentrated effort in making this to happen and to be across board, to have organic, yes, exactly. So there are some malpractices that have taken form over the years, that by now it's not easy to unravel. It's not easy to set back the hand of time. Especially when there is no good way. That's where you now have political will. When there is no political will to do this, let me tell you another aspect of this. When we're talking about the joint venture that we do with the foreign companies, okay, so most of the prospecting, most of the gas and oil has been, it's already mortgaged in future.
Before?
Yes. So that's why these prices will rise. For instance, if you're a foreign company, I am a local, I am NNPC. So I'll tell you to bring in your money, and your money will be 70%, which means anything that comes, you are taking your 70% upfront. So if there is a increased commitment that we are going to put in the production, it will not be the country, the citizens, that is going to bear the brunt, because it's already mortgaged. Yes. So that's what we are worried about in the sector.
Very sad commentary. But we also know that the total number of electricity consumers in Nigeria stands at 12.12 million in the fourth quarter of 2023. And what does this mean to the power sector and all we're going through? It means we're having more people wanting power, and we're getting less, generation of power.
Yes, more people. Energy demand is even low because the energy generation is low. So people that are in the grid is not as much as should be. That's the demand. Our population is 200 and something million. So you see, so you can see that there is a low power demand. So which means a lot of people are not depending on that grid. But there's another aspect to that statistic is that the money does not even come as it is supposed to, because most of them are not meters. We have metered. We have energy thefts. If you have, there's a statistics, I don't have it off head now. Yeah. It was done by World Bank. It said if 10 naira is required to be, if there is supposed to be 10 naira to be recouped from power, the government sees only about 6 naira. So the other ones are wasted from energy theft. So which means it makes the, you know, the process not to be.
It cannot sustain itself because the revenue that is supposed to generate is not coming through. So there's always a shortfall.
Exactly, there's a shortfall. So that is why, you know, it's not even, you see 12.1 million. It's not. There is a under utilization because, you know, most of them are also wasted. We generate them, but we don't have the infrastructure to transform efficiently.
Very sad commentary there, very sad commentary. All right, let's move on to the education sector, where we've got a big talking point as per entry infractions in institutions. JAMB says it uncovered 1,665 fake A-level results. That's a big story that the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board said it uncovered. At least 1,665 fake A-level results joined the 2023 direct entry registration exercise. The board also said the A-level result verification regime was occasioned by the endemic corruption associated with the system and was intended to restore the integrity of this component to admission process. It's a very worrisome issue because this is where the quackery of any professional or profession begins. How sad is this? We're looking at 1,665 fake A-levels, and these are people who are supposed to get into tertiary institutions, become doctors, lawyers, and different professions. How sad is it that we're getting it wrong, even from the A-level, rank of the education sector?
I'm even smiling because it's early in that we are seeing it early enough to, if we can tackle it now, because I'm even thinking that the statistic is economical
to the truth, right?
With the situation on ground, there is so much fakery going on, so much corruption, because so that's why you have a sense of entitlement so much, because people believe that all they need is a certificate. So to get that higher education, A-level, you know, it gives you direct entry, okay? So that's why I believe is usually in colleges of education and the other, I think, the other place that, you know, most of the
polytechnics.
Polytechnics are, you know, the danger is that we will have half-baked teachers. We will have half-baked civil servants, because these are where, you know, the colleges of education are where you roll out these basic civil service capacities. And you know, the problem is that when they don't have it, okay, in their certificate, they believe they are just going there to collect salary. They didn't go to, the fake certificate is what got them into the institution. So they are just going at it by just like by the numbers. We just get out there and get our salaries and go out into the system. If you can cheat the system, then cheat the system. So it's good that JAMB is trying to do, kudos to the institution, to the management and directorship of JAMB, because this shows there is a sort of, I think it ties into even what they are doing to, apart from the A-level, the O-level, you know, at the rudimentary aspect, which is entering the universities too. So I believe these educational the educational structures are being tightened down for good governance, because there was a time, I think the past administration, before this administration in JAMB, they never told the government how much they generated. They generated from this the sales of funds. So which means it was easy for the people that do fake A-level certificates because it's about the money, so they can just buy and sell. So if everything is for the, you know, for the pecuniary benefits and not for the quality of the process and the quality of the individuals that come out from the institutions, then it's a bad news for the country. But now they have started, I believe they go the whole hog.
Okay, let's still stick into the education sector. The Joint Admission Matriculation Board also said they've introducing new methods of accepting, or rejecting admissions offered. Do you think this is another good initiative by, JAM as a way of helping, sieve the good from the bad?
Exactly. That's why I say it's also part of the lower part. The lower part is JAM and O level. Okay. So now JAM is saying that if accepting and rejecting of results will now be through biometric. I think that's what they're saying. What it means is that nobody will use that admission letter again. That's the basic.
So that's a very good way to now.
Of course.
Be sure who's
exactly. So when you are giving an admission, because a lot of people are giving admission, they don't, because for instance, someone wants to go overseas and he still takes JAM. So by the time JAM is coming out and he passed, he's already overseas. Do you know somebody who used the admission letter? So but they are not saying now that the person has to do it via a portal that is actually based on biometrics. So nobody could fool the system now because it's not manual now. It's digital, and not only digital, it is tied to your biometrics, which is foolproof. So I believe it's going to take out those the
loopholes
for corruption and untoward practices. It's a good way to go.
Okay, but if we look at the power issues, the internet malfunction, and the lack of all these facilities, would it be beneficial for, let's look at the vulnerable groups in the country and areas where they do not have these internet services.
Exactly.
How do you think it's going to affect those?
It's what the government should do is to widen their structure, because they said that it's going to be in the computer-based test centers. Yes. So what you do, you have to, for instance, people with disabilities, you have to put them.
That's another special group.
Yeah, the special group, you have to put them into consideration. People that are in the rural areas, deep grassroots, you have to put them into perspective. It is the government that should, after all, you don't stop banking because some people will not be able to bank.
Sure.
So that is the same thing. You just have to widen your structure and deepen your processes to make it inclusive so that everybody will be carried along, thinking in line with your reforms. So that's what I can say for that, because you just have to take it to the next level. So the best way you do is all to make it practical, to make it practicable.
But for the universities, there was a time there was this issue between the institutions and JAM, because the institutions for JAM was stopping them from having a way of generating income, because they always will say pay for this for examination. They held their own separate exams even when you had passed post-JAM. Do you think this issue of determining how to accept or reject admission offers would not cause a rift between JAM and the institutions, because the institutions want more students in order to generate income?
They want more students and they want more money.
More money. So how do we balance this out, in as much as yes, we want to sieve those who are qualified and those who aren't qualified?
It's just a matter of negotiation, because there is nothing that consensus cannot solve. If they have, unless they are not giving it the stakeholders
the opportunity
and the platform to aid there and also make suggestions of practical ways for it to work, because there is no reform that would not have inputs, because the people that is applied for, the people that he meant for, they have to come together and discuss how it's going to be applied and how it's going to function. So if they bring in these institutions on board and there is a consensus among them, I think there is it's not going to be as sore as the issue of post-JAM, because this is even I think is even going to help. Yes, and it's going to even help the institutions. It's going to help the institutions because they have the registrar and the management of the school keep on, sieving. They do due diligence, they investigate, and some students are rusticated in third year, final year, just because of this kind of frauds they committed in first year. So if the biometrics is put in place, it will reduce their own work in the registrar and the exam and records department.
All right, let's just talk a little bit of politics before we call it a wrap on today's edition. We've got another big story talking about the caucus. We've got APC caucus raises alarm over threat to Aregbesolah's life. That's the big story there, that the Omolu Progressive Caucus of the All Progressive Congress in Osun State has raised an alarm over the threat to the life of the immediate past Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesolah. The APC group said there was a clear threat to Aregbesolah's life and freedom based on an article written by a media aide to the former governor in a statement signed by the organizing and publicity secretary of the caucus, Comrade Abosede. The group said the threat of Aregbesolah's life could not be overlooked, going by the previous attacks on the former governor of the state and his loyalists in the recent past. The caucus quoted the said article as saying, yet with the feeling of self-importance, he continues to wage war against the structure which brought him into limelight. But let's look at Aregbesolah. He has been a very, do we say controversial or person of interest while he was the Minister of Interior. He made some statements, and also when he was a governor. This threat, how serious should we look at it?
I think it's just a political
gimmick or antics to.
No, it's a political strategy to hold them down, because they are looking at the next election. It's Osun. Osun, in the next couple of years, Osun State will be having an election. If you remember, in the past, the attack he had was because he was supporting a candidate that was not their candidate, that was not popular, when he was a Minister of Interior. So that's where he was coming to the state, and
there was
on him, because once a governor, you have structure, you have a structure that can deploy at any time. So they are looking, in my mind, in my opinion, they are looking towards the next election. So they want to, say, okay, you want to attack us because we will make a move. They want to make a move. So when they now read a statement, they say, I think that statement is a veiled threat that if Governor Rauf Aregbesolah does this, he's going to see the outcome. It's a veiled threat. Sure. So, because they are preparing for the next election, and the Aregbesolah's camp, they are like telegraphing. They are trying to see where they are going to play. So, if you want, you read meaning into anything. Okay. So, it's better for them to come out now, especially. Politics is unpredictable. Let's go to Ondo State. There is a APC chieftain that just died, I think last week. And before he died, he said his life was in danger. Yeah. He mentioned it, and later he now died. And his brother said his death is not ordinary. He's not conspiratorial, because he said it before it happened. Yeah, okay. So that is politics. Anything can happen. And the witch cries in the night and the baby dies in the morning.
You know the person to point the finger.
So that's politics. So if somebody tells you in a political meeting and said, I know who you are supporting, because he himself doesn't support who you are supporting, he will be reading meaning into anything you say. So when that media aid reads that statement, they have to read meaning into it. So it's like trying to up their game ahead, because the APC is the ruling party.
For the security operatives, do you think would you say they have been proactive most times when all this kind of veiled threats comes, like the one that happened a couple of days back? What kind of burden is on security formation?
I don't think the security is doing enough as an institution when it comes to people of politically exposed persons, because these politically exposed persons should all have dossiers and files at the
within the security
formations. And people that are prone to certain kind of behaviors that will be violent or have violent followers, you should profile them. But what we find out basically is that it's not supposed to be so. The state owns the security outfit. So if you're in the ruling power, you will not fear anything from the security agencies, especially the Directorate of State Service, that DSS, So because they are supposed to be very impartial, and they are supposed to have everybody in their list, watching everybody, whether you're in the ruling party or you're not in the ruling party. But I think it's a matter of not having enough technology, and also not having enough maybe manpower, or maybe the statutory departments that take care of this. Because
already compromised?
Because I've not about compromise, it's about not being state of the art, not being modern enough. But they do the rudimentary. Let me tell you what I mean by rudimentary. I've seen that in every party they post somebody to be to be there, and they are present here watching what you do, in case you are doing something that is against national interest. That's the rudimentary. But I should go for that.
All right, that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk. I want to say a big thank you to my guest, University Greg Odogwu, who is an environmental and development specialist, joining us in the studio and giving us a very deep analysis of all the talking points we shared with you today from the global scene, coming from Finland, Senegal, and also Egypt, to national issues. My name is Anthony Momodu saying thank you for joining me on the program, The Desk.